When it came to your kids being students in the Olympia public school system, and I'm guessing we're talking about the public school system, were you guys involved in understanding and knowing what your kids were being taught on campus? And, were you familiar with their teachers and knowing their classmates and things like that?
Yeah. So we were involved. And what I noticed is that with my older two, my oldest is 26 and I have a 23 and I have a 19. So what I noticed with my older boys is that we never had a complaint about the school district ever.
And they were academically where they were supposed to be and involved in the school.
Involved, doing well. We never had an issue at all. And then around 2018, we started notice this shift that I was talking about. And it coincided with a change in leadership.
Okay.
And that change in leadership somewhat parallels with the leadership in Olympia in general, like city council, mayorship, the Olympia school board. And at the time, it was like, I didn't really put it together with the Olympia school board because who pays attention to a school board? I guarantee you that very few people even know who's serving on their school board. It's not something you even had to think about before.
Right.
So we went through this. What's going on? Why are things so political? Why is my daughter coming home and talking about so many racial issues? Why is everything so socially activated? Why is everything becoming so political? And so we were going,
and it was becoming political in the classroom too, and that's where your concern was.
That's where my concern was. Is my daughter was coming home saying, I spent the last hour in this class. I didn't learn the subject matter. But what I did hear about was what the teacher felt about, police or COVID or, some other charged political issue. And, but then you have a kid who's like, but mom, please don't email the teacher,
I feel like our kids, and you and I are obviously the same.
Yes. Like, please, I'm not going to
tell you anymore. My mom's going to take action.
Exactly. So, we went along like this. And to make a very long story short, my daughter ended up doing online by the time she was a junior because we were becoming so unhappy with the actual education.
Were you addressing your concerns with the school specifically? And what kind of response would you get?
So, I called her counselor, who was wonderful, like the career counselor person that works with them. And he was really wonderful. And I said, look, I don't know what's going on. It's not all the teachers. But if you've got 2 or 3 teachers doing this, I feel like half my daughter's day is about politics or about a social agenda or about other things besides the subject matter, and she's not learning. And, he was really honest and said, look, we've had a shift in the direction. And a lot of staff and administrators and teachers now feel that it's their mandate to do this, that this is now their job to go beyond regular education. So it's a problem.
Now, and let me interrupt really quick. So now with the involvement that you've had within the school district for the previous 20-something years, how did you feel as a parent to know that they made internal decisions about switching or transitioning direction without consulting parents about that?
Well, it was a process of trying to figure out how this happened. And that's when I get to the board.
Okay.
So that's when I got to, okay, how did this happen? Why are teachers all of a sudden doing this that weren't previously doing this? Where is this, direction coming from? And we have a ton of friends who are educators, and they started telling us, we're having to go through all this training. We're required to do this. There's a whole new system that's being developed. And because we were parents that were so involved, and because my husband was on boards and things like that, we were interacting with a lot of these people, administrators, district leaders, superintendent, things like that. Going to, for example, conferences where the district goals were being set. So we were, uniquely privy to some of the stuff that was going on, whereas a lot of parents weren't.
Yeah,
they're probably
just clueless.
Just clueless. Whereas we,
or maybe not even asking questions because I know I grew up. My mom was never really involved with what I did academically, and my kid was also going to school at this time, and I noticed the shift too. But I didn't question it much until the COVID thing happened.
Right. And I think during COVID was the huge shift for parents because your kids were at home. So you were hearing Zooms. You were more involved because you were home. You weren't necessarily working. So COVID shifted everything.
Yeah.
And so by that point, my daughter left, started doing online. Then we put her back for her senior year because she wanted to do volleyball, things like that. But it was a struggle for the last few years of high school was how are we going to get my daughter through high school where she's actually learning the subject matter?
Right.
And, then we get to last year and we had already kind of been on to the board of directors and we had realized by that point, oh, we have a board of directors that have come in over the last few years that are very political, that have almost infiltrated these positions as really socially agenda driven people.
And are not school board positions supposed to be nonpartisan?
They are, but that has totally shifted. Yeah. So,
which I can see because the educators started to become biased in teaching political agendas in social studies and different things like that.
It's completely biased. And you started noticing the local political party on one side, which was the left side, getting really, really involved in school board races. And so last year we had a school board member appointed, and it's a very long story, but it's because somebody had resigned and they were authorized to appoint somebody. These positions are normally elected.
And who can I just, when we say who was authorized to appoint?
The rest of the board.
Oh,
so there's a 5-member board. 4 of them were able to put somebody else in a seat that was resigned.
Okay.
And the individual that they put in, it was just baffling because this individual had a really long criminal record, but it wasn't the criminal record that was really bothering people. It was that she was not really reformed. I mean, a lot of this stuff was recent. And a lot of this stuff was her on camera saying things like F the police, tear up the city, because she was a really radical activist. And
so were her criminal charges associated with activism or something else?
Her criminal charges were everything from theft to, embezzlement, domestic violence, check fraud, things like that had spanned a number of years. And having a criminal record does not preclude you from sitting on a school board.
That's nice to know. However,
However, it was all the other stuff.
Yeah.
It was, she had gone to the city, the city manager's home, his private residence with a mob of people screaming outside of his house. I mean, this was somebody who was a really, really scary person.
Yeah.
And was now sitting on our school board. And so there were a number of people who knew this, who were like, how did this possibly happen? Where are we at here? And I thought, okay, something's finally got to get done. So I went to a school board meeting and spoke and basically listed all this stuff and said, I don't understand how you can justify this appointment.
Yeah.
And that's when everything kind of blew up. So that's when I was asked to, come on the news. And then that's when people were saying to me, well, what's next? What can we do next? And I'm sitting there going, I don't know. They're not listening. They turned around and literally called us racist for bringing up these concerns that were completely legitimate.
Yeah.
And so then we were in this horrible situation where it was now a battle between the school board and many parents, not just parents, but just community members who were now starting to question what's happening. What is going on here? And that's kind of the way it's been for the last year.